Welcome to Family Business Breakthroughs. Today we have something really special to share with you. When third-generation family business owner David Dumas began developing degenerative eye disease, he faced a reality that no family business leader ever wants to confront. Either shut down the business or bring on a partner who wasn't family, but could be trusted to protect and grow the legacy his family had built since 1917. I'm thrilled to welcome Gary Flynn, the CEO and co-owner of Dumas Sons, a true Charleston institution. For more than a century, Dumas Sons has been known for its timeless style, impeccable service, and deep roots in the Lowcountry community. Under David and Gary's leadership, Dumas Sons continues to thrive, not just as a retailer, but as a cornerstone of Charleston's cultural and business fabric. Today, we'll dive into Gary's journey, what it means to become part of a multi-generational family business without sharing the last name, and the lessons he's learned about family leadership and legacy along the way. Gary, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. What an amazing intro. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
You betcha. So just for real quick, for people who don't know about Dumas Sons, just give a quick overview of what it is. What do you guys provide and what do you sell?
We'll be glad to. Thank you. So as you mentioned, we're a third generation store on King Street. We are much more than just one store, though. But we have been open now 107 years on King Street all the time. This is actually physically our third location on King Street because we just kind of outgrew the other two.
Wow.
And back in 1973, David Dumas's family bought the building that we're in now. So there'll be no more moving. We'll be in this one forever. We serve a lot of different needs in the community here. We have a wide range of product in the store. It's a pretty large store. It's about 9,000 square feet. And we do everything from, underwear and belts and accessories to sportswear to outerwear to outdoor wear to fine things that you would wear to a gala or some sort of red carpet event. We try to be relevant in all those different classifications and categories and customers, and it has to be done on a big stage. So that's a bit about who we are, and there's much more to the story than that, but that's, I think, a good start anyway.
Yeah, that's great. And you're always dressed to the nines. Even when we were prepping for this, man, you come in, you dress good. My wife would probably be like, Jim, you need to get some style points, because I know she'll probably watch the YouTube video here. But man, your site, I'm going to encourage everybody to check it out here when we're done. But man, it has some really great clothes that are there. The style, the Charleston vibe. It is a vibe. There is a true style to Charleston, South Carolina. So, Gary, you have a really interesting story because you're not a blood relative to the Dumas family. But I'd love for you to just kind of talk about what drew you to Charleston and inspired you to join a family-owned business like Dumas Sons.
Sure. So the way I found out about the need that David had was honestly through a headhunter. I had been in a lot of states in the country, but I'd never been into South Carolina before, therefore never in Charleston before. And I really kind of didn't know much about it. But the headhunter reached out. We had a couple interviews about it. It all sounded good for both sides. So I flew down and brought my wife and daughter with us. We were living in New Jersey at the time, and I was working in Manhattan. But I brought them with us to say, hey, can we do this? Can we envision ourselves here? Because this is a move that's for me, for work, but it's for all of us for our lifestyle and where we're going to live. And honestly, we didn't drive any further than the airport to downtown. And we're like, oh yeah, we can do this. This is amazing. Charleston really, it grabs you right away when you get here. And once I heard the story of why David had a need. For those that don't know him, he has lost his eyesight. He has a degenerative eye disease, and he's gone blind. And in this business, you really, obviously, you have to be able to see what's going on and see the product and the customers and all that. So he faced either closing or taking on a partner because no one else in the Dumas family really has a stake in the business at all. And so, fast forward, now I've been here for 9 years working alongside David and trying to drive this thing forward. But the story was a big part of why I'm here. Not only David's personal story, but the Dumas family story. There's a lot of coincidences between here and my past with Nordstrom, to be honest. Both 1917 were founded, both third generation family owned. Both in the men's clothing business, and both who are kind of evolutionary, revolutionary, visionary almost, always trying to look forward, always trying to evolve, always trying to be better, always trying new things and being aggressive with those new ideas. And that just really spoke to me in a way that I had to say yes. And so here we are.
So you and David, you obviously sat down, you had a conversation. Tell me about what that conversation looked like between you two, the history of M. Dumas and Sons as well.
Sure. Yeah. It was a bit of a feeling out for sure for both of us. David's really, he did a brief stint up in New York with Lord and Taylor, actually, back in the day. So he had a little bit of experience outside of the four walls that are Dumas. But most of what he knew in this whole industry was in this building. And, I've spent a lot of time in lots of other places, between Nordstrom for 27 years and moving all over the country with them, and then jumping over and working with Hugo Boss and being, stationed in Manhattan, but having stores all over the world. And then moving on to Samsung and having, even a bigger company to work for that was based in Seoul, Korea. And so I just a lot of different experiences that I've got. And David wasn't sure that those experiences would translate into a smaller business that's based, in Charleston. So we had a lot of kind of conversations back and forth about trying to make sure that we were aligned and that we could work together, that, he would be open to my ideas and I would be open to his ideas, and that we could build this thing the way that we both wanted to. So that was paramount to me, to make sure that he realized how important the legacy was to me and how much the family name and the family business means to me. Coming in as an outsider, you might think the first thing you want to do is come in and make your mark, right? But
right.
What I wanted to do was come in and really understand and listen and learn, and then try to start, evolving things. So that's a little bit about what that first couple of one-on-one conversations were about.
No, you really touched on that, to listen and learn. Which is very important for anybody coming into a leadership role, especially with third generation, as you mentioned. So how did your experiences at Nordstrom shape what your approach is to just overall retail and the customer approach?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd say the one thing that you learn instantly when you're at Nordstrom is they put the customer first. And that was really described well by what they call an inverted pyramid. And if you can picture an upside down triangle, right, or the points at the bottom and the wide side is at the top. Well, the way they look at things is the customer is at the top of the pyramid, and then below that is the sales people who touch the customer next, and then it's those who support the salespeople, and then it works its way down to leadership. And that's been in my blood since I was 18 years old, and it's stuck with me my whole career that nothing happens without the customer first and foremost. And every decision you make has to come through the eyes of a consumer at the end. What does it look like to them? What does it feel like to them? And if it's not serving them, then you probably shouldn't be doing it, because you're not in the business to serve yourself. You're here to serve the customer. And so those were things that I learned along the way that really translated immediately here. Because you can't, if you ever have been in a bigger box environment like I was for a long time, you learn quickly that everything you need to know is right on the sales floor. All you have to do is go on the floor and look and listen and ask questions and observe either the customers or the salespeople, because they serve the customer day in and day out. And so they all have great ideas. And I wanted to make sure that they all knew right away that I was here to listen and learn and implement some of their ideas before I ever wanted to implement any of mine.
So how do you make sure that, you have a lot of employees? How do you make sure that they're also customer centric too, that they are following, really what M. Dumas and Sons has epitomized, which is being customer centric? How do you make sure that all your employees are the same way?
Well, I try to teach them or tell them or coach them in a way that says, hey, you are running your own business within the four walls of M. Dumas and Sons, and your customer is your king. If you run this business the way you would run a business for yourself, as long as you're putting that customer first, you can do almost anything when I'm around here. Like that's the key. Like giving them the keys to their own business and letting them run with it.
Wow.
Takes a little while for them to kind of really believe that you really mean it. But in practice, you have to really stand behind that. Even if the idea that they came up with and the thing that they tried for their customer was really probably not the brightest idea, or that wasn't an amazing thing, you still got to go, hey, you know what? I really thought that you tried it and that you gave it
right.
And you don't want to shut that down, because then you're trying to push a rope uphill, which doesn't work very easily. So, they need to be on board 100%. And we have a really kind of a unique mix of customer here, because where we sit in the world is we're in a very tourist friendly town, and King Street is the heart of the tourism of Charleston. And so, on any given day, we may see 70% tourist customers and only 30% of our local people coming in. If it's a weekend, it might even be less than that, because some of the locals don't love kind of coming downtown and fighting with the tourists and the traffic and all this, that, and the other thing. So the reason I say that is there's a lot of opinions that come with that, right? There's people that come in from New York and from Chicago and from Ohio, but then also from Mount Pleasant across the water or downtown. And so there's a lot of people that you want to try to please. And so yes, we want to listen to it all, but then you got to run it through a filter and say, okay, is this important? Is it big enough to really change a direction or a strategy that we want to implement based on this information? And we can't just go chasing every single idea. But I do want them to all to know that every idea is a good one. It's just we may not be able to implement all of them.
That's great. It sounds like then you really build some strong relationships with local community people. You see repeat customers. You're seeing the same faces. Is that true?
Yeah. It's amazing. When you're here for just a couple of weeks, you get the feeling of, my gosh, there is such deep roots and such a commitment to this community to supporting Dumas. It's been fantastic. Literally, we get people in here saying, yeah, my grandfather used to shop here. My dad used to shop here. And now I shop here. Or they still do, ideally.
I love it.
So, we hear all these stories of, oh man, I remember when, and it's, when David was here and his mom was running things and David was just a kid, or, the way they used to display product was always kind of this way or that way, or, just, you hear these stories all the time. I remember when the cash register used to be over there and now it's here. Like that's different. What happened to that staircase that was, all that kind of stuff comes up.
Yeah.
So you realize how special this place is for the community too, because they continue to come and support us, which is fantastic.
That is so incredible. So that's really good that you mentioned that, because I love this kind of segue that you allowed me, which is you've been featured in papers and magazines, and one thing that you mentioned was evolving rather than revolutionizing to stay relevant. And so how do you do that? How do you balance the honoring tradition while still pushing forward to the next thing that you want to accomplish?
It's a very delicate thing, to be honest, because you want to bring your customer, current customer, your legacy customer, you want to bring them with you with whatever direction you're going in, if you can. But not everybody comes along for the ride, unfortunately. And so I want to make sure that I keep the foundational things true and the same as much as possible. And there's some brands that have been in here for a long, long, long time, and we stay true to them because they stay relevant. Brands like Barber and like Filson and Duckhead, those are all 100-year-old brands themselves, and they have a strong business with us. And many of those people were one of their best customers because there's such a good synergy between the two of us. So we want to keep that alive, and things like our own private label program that has the Palmetto and Crescent Moon embroidered on the chest, and has a heritage label in it that is a throwback label from the 60s. So we try to keep those things alive. But at the same time, we're constantly putting in new shop and shops and bringing in new brands and going in a new direction, so that it's fun and inviting and exciting for a new customer that's coming in too. And so you only can do that really with a lot of space for one, and a lot of investments, to be honest. When you walk into our store, one of the things that first hits you is, oh my gosh, they've got a lot of product in here. And
that's good.
Yes,
that's good.
It's amazing. It's amazing because you have to try to do all the things that we're trying to do. And what we really want to hit you on the forehead with when you walk in the door is like, my God, I don't need to go anywhere else. They've got everything here. Like I can get anything I need here. And that's not physically true, but that's a thing that we're trying to get across to you, whether that be shorts or whether that be, a tuxedo shirt, whatever it is that you might need. We're gonna have a choice for you. Now, you may not love our picks. Okay, fair enough. But at least we're going to have something relevant for you. And again, the best way that we can stay relevant in that world is just to continue to listen. In this case, we're listening to our consumer for sure, our customer, but also we're listening to our vendor community. And we've got a number of other stores in the country that we listen to and talk to on a semi-regular basis to understand what's happening in their store, what's happening in the industry, what's happening in the market. Hey, what's happening for you? What's new that you're excited about? Oh gosh, I've never heard of that before. We'd better go explore that. Thanks for the tip. That sort of thing is because you never know where this next good idea is going to come from. And we stumbled on an idea from a friend of ours. Actually, he was a vendor, also a friend of ours, and then he spun off and he opened he's now part of a store group as well. But he told us about a particular little brand that turned into something that is our number one volume brand in the store.
No way.
It's Sartorio. It's an Italian brand. We literally started with 3 jackets, 3 units each. So 9 total units that we bought to try it, to see what we could do with it. It was a departure for us because it was more expensive than what we'd been carrying. And it was almost an instant success. And it just grew and grew and grew and grew. And now we're doing well over $1 million with that brand. And
oh my gosh,
it's become amazing. So we would probably never have stumbled across that if we weren't listening and really actively listening. It's one thing to say it, but it's another to really go, no, tell me a little bit more about that. Why does that work? Or what's the fit like? Or why is it so good? Or, those sorts of things. We really just have to stay curious. And when you do that, you stumble onto things and you give them a try, and not all of them work, right? Some of them don't work at all. Some of them work a little bit, but then they're not as good as the other thing that you used to have or whatever. And so you're constantly something new coming in, something old going out, and constantly rotating. And that's, I think, how you can build a business that's as thriving and as big as ours. We were lucky enough to have doubled the business within the store over the course of the time that I've been here. So in the last 9 years, we went from a very big store to one that's now kind of pretty big in the United States. Especially when you think about the fact that all of our product is menswear, just like 99% of it's menswear. A lot of other big stores have men's and women's equally. So when you look at the landscape and see, how much volume we're doing in just menswear, it's pretty impressive, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. When I look online, there are so many items that are there, and I'm like, this is incredible for you to be able to do it. And so that kind of brings me to, you mentioned working in with your vendors, staying curious, and from what I could really see is there was this at some point. A blend of like American tradition with European tradition. And then also prior in 2019, you created an e-commerce website, which was perfect at the time the pandemic was going on. So let's just touch on really quick, like how do you and David then come together to make these decisions or have these conversations about here's how we want to move the business forward?
Yeah. So, it's a little more challenging, to be honest, because of David's site limitations. So he can't necessarily see the product that we're talking about when we're talking about bringing in a new line. So he's had to learn the trust factor there of going, hey, if you guys are hearing great things about it and you believe it's great, then let's give it a try. And that took a few seasons to kind of get comfortable with for him, because again, he's been in the driver's seat of this business for the last 30 years, doing it the way that he wanted to do it, and now he's kind of having to release a little bit of the control on the day to day to another group of people, and so the conversations with him were very deep in the beginning. Like, okay, so what is this? Why is it needed? What is it doing? What is it serving? Is it better than X, Y, and Z? Don't we already have enough of that sort of thing? All of those kind of conversations. And when it comes down to facts and figures, the man's brain is brilliant. Like, he remembers everything. And so I can tell him something, 3 weeks ago about a sell-through of a vendor or whatever. Yeah. And, now we're having a separate conversation completely. He goes, well, but you told me before that barber sell-through was 37% for the last 3 weeks. And so why all of a sudden is it like, oh my gosh, you remember that? Okay, great. Which is great, because I don't have that good of a memory on that kind of stuff. So between the two of us, we make a good team that way.
So it sounds like there was a lot of trust building that really needed to occur there. A lot of deep conversation. It sounds like you kind of have some criteria now that you guys work through of like, okay, like if I'm going to present an idea to David, here's kind of what that looks like, which I think any family business owner could really relate to, is building trust with your team and your leadership team specifically to be able to move that forward. So,
well, I think it's important that real quickly.
No,
I think it's super important to know your audience and really know how they hear things and how they learn and how they look at things, so that you present yourself in a way that is relevant to the person that you're speaking to. And that's a different conversation with a salesperson or a customer or an operations person or with David Dumas. You have to know your audience, and you have to really present information in a way that they like to hear it.
No, that's brilliant. You have to know who you're talking to specifically. We talked about putting some new items in the store, but you've scaled. Like, since you have joined, you've grown locations. So how about that? That's a lot bigger than just putting, a shirt or something like that into a store. How have you and David talked about that conversation of like what scaling looks like, getting into that next place? Talk to me about what that looks like.
So even in the first set of interviews that I had, it was on David's mind to expand. He knew and felt in his heart that the Dumas brand was strong enough to be in more than just one place. He believes, and I do now to this day as well, that the Dumas brand is relevant, at least in the Southeast. So when you start looking at things that way, then expanding in our own market doesn't even seem all that scary. Because if you think, holy, we could probably have a store in Atlanta, or we could have a store in Raleigh-Durham, or we could have a store in Greenville, South Carolina, or in other places, because we have a fair amount of customers from those locations now that are shopping with us. Okay. And then so we've got a great database of customers from, all over the country, but we can tell you, what our top 10 markets are very easily and go, okay, well, now if those are our top 10 markets, should we consider putting a store there? But we thought, let's expand a little more close to home first and foremost, so that we can really be involved in it. And so that's where we started. We started with our Southern Tide store that we opened up across the water over in Mount Pleasant in a center called Town Center. And we did that about 7 years ago now, I believe. And we just tried that as a partner store. So it literally says Southern Tide by Dumas Sons on the building. So it's a Southern Tide store that we own and operate. And so it was a kind of an easy way for us to dip our toe in the water, so to speak, and see if we could run a second store. And it took a number of years for us to feel really comfortable doing that. But once that worked and was proving to work well, then it was just about, okay, what's next? What should we try next? And the next thing after that was the website. We thought, okay, well, let's make sure that we build a website that tells our brand story first and foremost. And to be honest with you, in the beginning, I didn't really even care if we sold anything out of it. It was really more about, we have customers from all over, as I said, so they can still access us through our website from wherever they happen to be. And so I wanted to make sure that they had a place to come and at least see new things. Hopefully it would spur something to make them pick up a phone and give us a call or connect with their salesperson. So that was the next thing. And you mentioned it. We got super lucky because we opened it in November and COVID really hit us in January. And by February, we were closed for 6 weeks. So we at least had some sort of a lifeline to keep things moving forward while we were trying to figure out how to get through this pandemic. And so that was a happy accident, I guess I would call that. But thankfully, thankfully, David said, "Yeah, let's give it a try." He was a little worried about the expense of getting something started up that we weren't really intending to sell a whole lot out of, and had a hard time kind of getting his brain around the reason for that. And how important it is to the overall experience today. The customer sees you in so many different ways, whether that's in social media or your own website or your own store. All of it has to be in sync and working together to tell your brand story. And that was just the next kind of step for us, was expanding into other stores and then expanding onto a website.
Yeah, because really you met your customers right where they were, which was online at that point, which I think you did a great job doing. And, just speaking to you, I have this sense of just, you love the customer, you love this family business, like you have a big heart for this family business. And so, what does it mean to you to carry forward a multi-generational family business such as Dumas and Sons?
Yeah, it's a pretty heavy weight, to be honest. It doesn't seem it on the day to day, but when you step back for a minute and go, okay, what are we really doing? How are we really doing? And are we living up to what the Dumas family would be proud of? And I really take that seriously. I take my profession, I take my my industry very seriously, because I think I'm a super passionate person about it. And the familyness of it really gets me right in the heart, man. It just I even get a little bit choked up even right now, just thinking about David's grandparents opening this store and trying to serve customers back then when they were more or less kind of like a thrift store to start with, and then working themselves through the World War I and World War II and the Great Depression and all the things that they fought their way through. But it continued to evolve and change and moving forward. David has said to me right in one of our first conversations, he said, it's either I take on a partner or we close, and I'll be damned if we're closing my grandfather's store on my watch.
That's so incredible. I love that. The family has seen so much over this time frame. And like I mentioned to you before, somebody walks in there, you are the best part of their day. Like, they are coming in, they are looking to get a good style. They are looking to look the best for whatever occasion that it is.
Right.
So it has to feel good each and every day to be able to help those people out.
Yeah, it's a privilege, honestly.
Oh man, that's awesome. So you've worked with David now, and so what have you learned from working with him personally and professionally?
Well, I mean, I learned how important connection to the vendor community and connection to your peer group of stores is. I kind of always knew that, but he was he really instilled again in me how critical it is to get ideas from outside the building. And getting them, whether that's from your customer or, like I said, your vendor or from other stores. He spent a fair amount of time on the phone talking to people. He couldn't meet them necessarily in the store as often as he wanted to because of the eyesight limitation. He just felt a little bit awkward that way, but he could be on the phone with people, and that was all the same to him as it was when he had his vision. So the things that he would learn and things he would bring back kind of reinvigorated in me how important that is. I've always known that the customer was my number one source of information, but really leaning into the other avenues of information is critical. And then he had to teach me how to run a store. Like I was at Nordstrom, right? They have a corporation. They have lots of stores, but I never ran the whole thing. Like I never was responsible for payroll or responsible for HR or was responsible for all kinds of, all the different things it takes and all the different hats that you have to wear. I wore hats myself, but not all of them. And so I had to learn the finance side of the business from him and cash flow part of things and, payroll and all of that stuff, making sure that, all of your decisions have got to make sure that they hit the bottom line one way or another, because they're going to, and you got to anticipate the way they're going to. So I learned a ton about all of that for my first 4, 5, 6 years. Were a really pretty steep learning curve on those things. And once I kind of got that better understood in my world and in my brain and my mind, then David and I we just kind of took off. It just so happened that, coming out of COVID was about when I felt like I really got my arms all the way around this thing. And we just were able to put the pedal to the metal, and we've just been running hard ever since. And it's been super rewarding.
Man. So what's next for M. Dumas? What innovations, what directions, what excites you most about what's next?
I'd say it's interesting because we don't really have the next thing already figured out. We're in a space right now with 4 stores and the website that I've been working on the team itself and making sure that we have leadership in place that can run a multi-store organization as opposed to a single store organization. Whether that be, help in the buying world, having somebody who can help me do the buy for all 4 stores, or whether that be marketing and making sure that we're speaking to all 4 stores' customers, and that, we're talking one Dumas, but how do we do it differently in a Johnny O store versus a Southern Tide store versus our own store? And how do we leverage the brand's marketing and their voice and what their content that they're creating, absorbing it into our world so that it still feels like a Dumas item or a Dumas video or a Dumas whatever, so that it feels like us, but that we're leveraging the assets that are already out there from a lot of the great brands that we do business with. So I think that's what the last year and a half or so have been all about for me, is just making sure we've built our foundation solid so that it doesn't crumble underneath the weight of, all these additional stores. And then once we feel that we got our arms around that, then I think other opportunities will come up. And there's already been 5 or 6 opportunities that have come our way that we've just said, well, maybe not just yet, but thank you, and we'll maybe do it down the road. So we're listening and trying to figure out what that next step looks like. But I could see us opening a couple more stores. I think there's parts of town that we don't really hit great. Like there's the whole Kiowa part of South Carolina, the islands down on that side. They have a great center called Fresh Fields, and we could pop a store in there pretty much, I think, and do pretty well there. But then there's also, there's Savannah, there's Myrtle Beach, there's Columbia, there's Greenville, there's other places out there that I think we could be successful once that foundation's built.
Is M. Dumas and Sons going to come down to Texas? Are you guys going to bring it on down to Texas?
I don't know. Texas is a whole other world. I lived in Dallas for about 4 years. I know it is a different place. And actually, I think we could do okay there too, to be honest. I do think so. We would have to tweak some things, but we could do it. We could do it.
I know you could. I know you could. Man, I feel like the style would definitely hit for sure down here. So, I always like to close off with really having something from a personal reflection. And so what's the best advice you've received that guides you today?
I guess I go back to the being curious. Just don't lose the curiosity. It can get somewhat mundane, maybe, if you let it. It can get kind of routine. It can get kind of like, okay, here's another day, if you let it. But if you stay curious and you stay committed to trying to improve, then you're constantly going to be changing and evolving with your business as a person. And that's how I've been. I mean, I honestly, there's rarely a day where I'm like, gosh, I really wish I could take today off. Like
Mhm.
I really need a day, because there's just so much going on here all the time, and I'm doing something different every single day. Even though there's similar functions, the way you do it is different, and it just keeps me young and keeps me invigorated. And so I would just say, what if you don't feel that way about what you're doing right now, then maybe you're not doing the right thing.
Mm.
And or you need to go about doing the thing you're doing in a different way so you get that vibe out of it, because
Mhm.
your team and your customer know when you're kind of sleepwalking and you're just kind of going through the motions, and they can pick up that so quickly that if you're not passionate about what you're doing and if you aren't bringing the energy to the team, then you're not doing anything special. And you need to really be in charge of your own business that way. So I would just implore people to make sure, do a self check and make sure you feel like you're really doing what you should be doing. I've made some pretty big moves in my career to try a couple of different things. And it really solidified in me what I was really passionate about. And so it's never too late to, go try something different if you don't feel like for sure that you're doing the right thing.
That's awesome. It's so good. And let me just tell you, like, the wisdom that you have provided today, I think is second to none. Talking about staying curious, meeting your customers where they're at for sure, building trust with your leaders. And then I love this one: look, listen, and observe. When you talked about really looking at your customers and your vendors and having those relationships. Gary, I'm gonna say thank you very much for your time today.
It's my
It's
pleasure.
great. I'm with Gary Flynn, the CEO, co-owner of Dumas and Sons, premier Southern third generation family business. I want to say check them out on mdumasandsons.com. Go visit them down in Charleston, South Carolina. Go. I know I'm going to be down there at some point in time. I know my wife wants to go down, so I will be in. That is for sure.
All right.
So I want to say thank you so much for your time today and everything that you do. And I look forward to the next exciting thing that you guys do.
Yep. Stay tuned. It'll be coming soon.
All right. Good deal.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today on Family Business Breakthroughs. I'm so appreciative to have Gary on. And I just want to recap some of his wisdom, which was look, listen, observe when it comes to the customer approach, and really instilling that within your team members for them to use as well, and staying curious. Always stay curious, wanting to learn more, wanting to stay ahead of whatever industry that you're in, and always wanting to just learn from others, and really just staying on top of what it is that your customers want. Go back, check out this recording, write down your takeaways. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, if there's anything that Meridian Associates can do for you in your family business, reach out to us at any time. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next Family Business Breakthroughs.